spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you walking daily by the Savior's side? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Do you rest each moment in the crucified? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? When the bridegroom cometh, will your robes be white? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Will your soul be ready for the mansions bright? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed in the blood, in the soul-cleansing blood of the Lamb? Are your garments spotless, are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb?
Amen.
Amen.
And the truth stands on two pillars. Just like I stand in front of you today on a right leg and a left leg, and if I only have one pillar, I can't move around. So what are the two pillars? The two pillars of our faith. The first pillar of our faith was used to crucify Christ. In the second coming of Christ, the other pillar of the faith is going to be used to reject Christ. Our two pillars are grace and the law. And we as a people must be perfectly balanced between the law and grace. And you will find the church, to a large extent, is split on those that are very obsessed with the law, and on the other side you have those that are very obsessed about grace. But when we settle between the two, that's when we get settled in the truth. And it's actually critical that, and so the first time Christ came, they crucified him because he never was, they accused him of not being a law keeper, am I right? Right? So Christ was rejected by his people on the basis of law. What's Christ going to be rejected in the second coming? On the basis of grace. The message today is that God is so gracious and loving, he accepts you as you are, and grace, grace, am I right?
Yeah.
That picture of God doesn't fit into the picture of a God who is coming to judge the world. And so on that basis, God is going to be rejected because they're going to say, no, God is too gracious to destroy the wicked. Let us pray. Dear Lord, as we come before you, we once again, as always, are in need of your Spirit and your blessing. And so here we are, we lay ourselves at your feet and ask you to move us. We pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
So this afternoon, you guys got the right one here. Okay. We're going to give you a little bit of our testimony of how we moved to the country. The purpose of it is to inspire you, to show you how we did it. Maybe it will help you to see possibilities for you to do it. And in it, we can also give you some warnings of what not to do. This is basically us arriving in our country property. out between Clanwilliam and Calvinia. So we're about 60 k's from Calvinia and about 80 k's from Calvinia and 60 from Clanwilliam. And so we had been convicted, I've been convicted about country living for a long time, and our family had been pursuing it. We did have a farm before this. And then, I'll let my wife tell some of the story. So I won't tell you that part of the story. Okay, so I'm going to show you some pictures of what our farm looked like before. This is our first farm. We bought it in Robertson. My parents came to stay, and they built their house on the hill over here. And like all good city people, where's the first place a city person builds their house? Can you tell the difference between a city person and a person who lives on the farm where they build their house? Well, down there you can see that's where our neighbor's farmhouse is. Down in the valley, no view. Wow. But we're city people. The first thing we want is a view. Number one mistake. Put your home as closest to where your operation takes place as possible. We've seen other people also doing the same thing, and it becomes an absolute curse. You quickly forget about the view, but now your garden's 300-400 meters away. You got to walk up and down. Everything's there. Build, and that's why you see the farmers. They don't go and build up on the beautiful view. They build right in the center. The shed's there. It's as central as possible. So that was one of the mistakes that we made on the first property. And I remember the ground was so hard, and my parents, we had told them to build at a different place, but they wanted the view. And I think we do. Do we have pictures here? No. But I mean, just about 300 meters behind us, there was a beautiful place with deep soil. But where they planted, we had to use crowbars to dig the holes because it was like shale. And I remember my parents complaining how hard it was. But sometimes we make choices and we make things harder than they need to be. And this is one of the things we learned in country living. When we started out about 20 years ago, there was no one to turn to. There was no one doing it. We were pioneers. We made lots of mistakes. And so what we are trying to do is develop a community of people who are moving to the country so we can support each other. We have a group, a country living group, got about 180 people on there already, where we try and motivate, we coordinate, and we want to help each other, make it as easy as possible, because it's a big task to undertake, And I got a business card from one of your guys here, and I see he's a plumber. Someone was a plumber or something, got a plumbing business. And within the church, we've got all these skills. We need to pull together and bring these skills, as I mentioned before. And we need to avoid making as little mistakes as possible, because it's God's money. So if my brother messes up and loses 100,000, it's 100,000 that could have gone to God's work. Yeah. And so we need to keep that in mind and try and work intelligently, get as much information, and make friends with people who have country properties. Go and visit them, stay on weekends, work with them, if you're looking around. And of course, if you've got a family and children, do as much with your children as possible, and make them your first mission before anyone else or anything else. Your children must be your first mission. So play with them. We did everything together as a family. That's us fight and fire. We lived in Grabo for a while. We had access to the mountains every day. They'd go there. That's Sarah. Yeah, and so our journey kind of started. Well, we'd already had a farm, we sold it, and we were looking for a new property, but those of you who've looked around, property is very expensive. And whether you're buying 5 hectares in the country or 300 hectares, the price doesn't vary much. And, it's funny, all these people come and they tell me their stories, and I'm like listening to them, and you know what? All their stories are the same. They all come and tell me, and I'm like, man, I've heard that again before. I've heard that. We've traveled everywhere. We've looked in Robertson. We've looked in Montague. We've looked on the West Coast. We've looked in Riversdale. And all the, everybody's looked, and everybody comes across the same problem. And finding a small little place just to raise your family out in the country is difficult. The system is not designed for country living properties. You've got commercial farms, you've got residential property, and then you've got commercial property. So if you look into finance, it's a real problem. There's no market. As soon as it falls into agricultural land, the banks won't touch anything. So you might be able to buy a little townhouse in the town for R1 million, but you won't get finance for 300 rand property outside in the country, 300,000. So it's challenging. So anyway, so we had bought this old caravan, and I've got a panel beating business in the Strand, and so we gutted the caravan. And so what we basically came to the conclusion, we will only be able to afford a little piece of land with nothing on it. And so we built the caravan so that when we find the little piece of land, we can live in the caravan. And what was interesting is, while we were building the caravan, some of my clients, they came into the workshop, they saw, and they wanted to know what we were doing, so we explained to them what we were doing. And I grew up in a middle class family, basically. And, all our friends, they said to us, "Oh, you're crazy what you're doing, you can't do that," all the things. And then these millionaire clients, wealthy clients would come in there, and they'd ask me about it, and a couple of them, I'd explain to them what we're doing. We want to raise our children in the country. And so the millionaire people driving these fancy cars, living on Spanish Farm in Somerset West up there, they were like, "Wow, that's fantastic, go for it." And I was like, I expect them to look down on us as these people wanting to live in a caravan. And the one guy told me the story, and he says, "Oh yeah, you know how we started out? For 10 years we lived in one room. It was their kitchen, their lounge, their everything. For 10 years, that's how they started out. And this guy's a houses all over the world and things like that." And I thought to myself, well, maybe that's what makes the difference between the middle class, the working class, and those that eventually become very wealthy and successful, is the possibility to see the potential of something and to be willing to deny yourself of pleasures today for something in the future. And if you know the vision of Ellen G. White, of the people at the end on the narrow way, how many of you know that vision on the narrow way? Yeah. And so as she sees, as we get closer to the end, we have to let go more and more and more. It starts off with ox wagons. Eventually they had to let the ox wagons go, and then they plowed it all on the horses, and eventually they had to let the horses go, and then they walked, and eventually they had to take their shoes off because the way was so narrow. And then she says, "I looked around to see those who had not learned deprivation." In other words, those who hadn't learned to deprive themselves. And they were not there. They weren't there. And so we have to start depriving ourselves, even in the good times, for what is coming. We need to make provision. Rather live in a tent now to have your country live in property than be forced to live in a tent by the government because you've been kicked out. It's a lot easier to do something voluntarily. Yeah. It's much easier. We've gone through a lot of suffering, well, not suffering, but we've gone through a lot of deprivation as a family to get into country living. But it hasn't been burdensome, you know what I mean? It's not like, but wait until you get forced to do it. Then it's not fun, So we need to start doing these sort of things in times when it's easy and depriving ourselves now. So yeah, that's Timothy there. You can see they've grown. You know, a lot of people say, "Yeah, Paul, you know what? Yeah, but look at your army you've got. You've got like 4 sons and you've got a daughter." Yeah, but when we went country living, they were little. They were small. They were no help at that stage. I mean, they did from a young age, but you know. So just remember, when we first went out, they were small, but they have learned to work from very young.
Amen.
Yeah, Bill.
This is Jerry Franklin. He has a ministry. He had a ministry, well, still ongoing, which he calls "You Can Survive." He had a place in Canada, and my boys had the opportunity of filming for Eden Life. I don't know if you heard of Eden Life a couple of years back. And Uncle Jerry is the reason why we are in the country. That man gave the most touching seminar. We came back from that seminar in 2010, October, and I felt convicted that we had to find a farm. He has passed away since, but his ministry goes on. If you can get the book, You Can Survive, by Jerry Franklin, I recommend you get that book for country living. It will help you a lot. And him and his wife still goes on with the ministry.
Yeah, I would say when he was alive, he was the authority on country living in the Adventist Church. If you do want the book, let us know. We've got 1 or 2 copies. So, but it's a excellent book. Yeah, so this is what our farm looked like when we got there. So we bought this place. It had been kind of declared a bit of a disaster area because the flood had come down over here. If you look at this piece of land, there was about 4 or 5 hectares of arable land which had been taken away from the flood. So the river had broken through.
Sure.
And so that was the one issue. And the other issue was there was a old guy and his mother living on the farm that had life rights. And so a lot of people were scared of it. And so we basically bought this place for about the same money as what you could buy a townhouse at the time. 44 hectares. And yeah, I don't know, we were pretty young when we did that and pretty brave. No electricity, there was no electricity on the farm. The box was down here, but it wasn't connected. There was no sewerage. There was no working toilets. There was no running water.
If I may just add that we came back from that camp in October, me and my sons, and we sat on the internet looking for a farm. And from finding it to moving on it, 2 months. When God moves, He moves very quickly. No, as Paul said, no electricity, no water, 5 little kids.
Yeah, I always use the illustration and I say Mrs. Noah was probably a stronger person than Noah himself. Because I don't know if you men, but when your family gets attacked and people attack your family, who do they normally work on?
The mother.
They work on the mother. They work on the wife. That happens with me. Pearl comes and tells me all the things she gets told, and people come and ask her all the questions. And no one ever comes to me. Okay, they come with other questions, but they won't. But they try and work through her. And I want to tell you, Mrs. Noah, imagine her for 120 years. Her husband has given everything he had to build the ark. No overseas holidays. I mean, imagine your husband doesn't love you. He doesn't love you. Look at that stupid thing he's building. He's not looking out for you. I mean, my husband did this. He bought me this. He took me overseas. Look at you know how strong a woman Mrs. Noah must have been, because she must have been hammered relentlessly every day. And to a large extent, I actually think Pearl took the bigger brunt of when we moved into the country, because I dropped her off there with the kids. And that's the truth, because You know, we were convicted that our children need to grow in the country, because the problem is, you know, people come to us today and my kids love salads and fruits and healthy food,
Vegetable.
and they relish it. You know, they just love it. And you know, people, how do you get your kids to eat this? And I'm like, it's no big deal. They eat it. They love it. It's because they were raised with the appetite. Now, the same principle works with country living. If your children are raised with a city appetite, you are going to battle to get them into the country later on, because there's so much pleasures and distraction. There you go out there, now you've got to work hard, and you've got to dig and plant trees, and you've got to put irrigation. The children in the cities here, what do? They play games. That's all they do. Sport, games, computer games, that's all they do. They don't want to dig a hole. And so the appetite is lost. And that's why, for me, if you've got a family, it's urgent to get into the country. It's an urgent call, and you cannot delay, because you're going to lose that golden window of opportunity. So anyway, I basically dropped Pearl there with the kids.
We were blessed though, because we did have another man that was helping us to get our electricity and water up with my boys. So for the first 4 weeks, it was hard going, because we had a goal. We wanted electricity and water.
Yeah, so, okay, well, let's see. And there's no cell phone reception. So that's the other thing. So they would have, where the picture's taken from, basically,
It's a mountain.
you'd have to walk up there to make a phone call. So I couldn't phone Pearl whenever I wanted. Pearl couldn't phone me whenever she wanted to. But God, Pearl will testify to some miracles in that relation, eh, Pearl?
Oh yes, absolutely. God was good, because moving to the farm, that was my fear. There was no reception. So how am I going to phone Paul? I needed to speak to my mother as well, who was in Joburg. And so I ventured to the next door neighbouring farm, and I'd go at the payphone. You know, it would cost quite a bit at the payphone, and I'd phone from there. And eventually, it was frustrating, because I wanted to be on my own property. I don't want to go to my neighbour's property. And eventually, God gave me a reception on our farm, from our tank. It started from our tank near our barns, which is over here, this white building on the right. And then it moved to our rockery, and then it moved to the mountain. It's just, God just gave it where it was needed. And that for me was amazing.
And it wasn't always all the time, just
No.
sometimes when Pearl was like
When I
really
really
down,
needed it.
suddenly she would get reception, yeah?
It was very trying for me to go to the farm, because, you know, for little kiddies, there's no one to talk to, no one to visit you, no friends. I knew nobody. And within the first 4 weeks of moving there, we had somebody come to our farm from the water affairs and whatever of the government. What's that called?
Yeah.
And he came to us and he said to us, do we know that this is a disaster area? So he's telling me this. We've just moved here with our little kids, and I had to get on the phone and I had to tell Paul, what have we done? You know, that was just one of the things. And then I was thinking, have we done the right thing moving to the farm? This is how the enemy works, you know. He tries to get you to doubt and to be discouraged. Yeah. That was a car, well, our whole life, when we had our small kids, we drove very humble cars. And as Paul said, we're in the panel beating business. And he got this car for me just before we bought the farm on an auction. And it was a beautiful car. It was like almost new. It had very low mileage. And I had to sell that car to give the money towards buying our farm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we had to, it was almost a brand new X-Trail, 4x4 X-Trail, which I bought by chance on an auction. We replaced, it had water damage, and I wasn't even there for that car. I mean, there's no ways we could afford that car, so I wasn't even, but it was like the third car on the auction, and it was going so cheap, I sold. And we walked away with this car, and we bought a computer box and popped the computer box in, and voila, nothing else to do on the car. I think after a few months, the electric accelerator, that went, and we replaced that. But otherwise, that car was perfectly fine. But that car gave us the money to be able to buy the property at that stage. So yeah, this is what the house looked like. It hadn't been inhabited for years.
It was a bit shocking.
You know?
Yeah.
So Pearl is a city girl. She wasn't raised on a farm. So, it's different if you're raised on a farm and you have that sort of lifestyle. So this was a huge adjustment. I wasn't raised on a farm either. I was also raised in the town. Fortunately, my father took me a lot into nature. We spent a lot of time in nature. And I just want to say to you, if you've got small children or you've got family, spend as much time in nature with your children as possible. There's lots of stuff written about it by Spirit of Prophecy, but there's a miraculous things that take place. Just expose your children to nature and things happen.
And they're
It's as
growing
simple
their
as that.
own vegetables and their own little flowers. It's an education that schools can't give.
Yeah, so that was the beautiful dream house.
So we moved to the farm and I stayed in the barn in a caravan for 4 years. Because this was the barn. We stayed in this barn for 4 years in a caravan because we couldn't move in the house.
So we pulled the caravan in there, and yeah. So
This is the house.
This is the inside of the house. You can see this is how it was just left. So yeah, that's when we I think that's the picture when we arrived here. Sarah.
That's us in the barn with our caravan.
Okay, so that's in with the caravan. So the orange caravan over here is
the one we fixed
the
up.
one we fixed up. Then we did buy a second caravan, which is that one there. And then Josh and Luke started they stayed in that caravan. But this is how life was. This is what it looked like. There's our furniture. I'll tell you what, you can see that floor was just rocks. So it was very difficult to sweep and keep clean and yeah.
That's every day.
I don't know, my wife was very brave. We were both very brave. So yeah, that's what home looked like. But one of the first things we bought, and I want to encourage all of you, is get a big family table. Sit around a table and eat your meals together. It's something spiritual about that. I mean, even in Revelation 3, we told that we will sup with God. We are invited to sup with Him. There's something special about having a family table. Make sure you have one, and make sure your family sits and has meals around the table. It's a very spiritual experience.
A few months ago, we had a young lady come visit us on the farm, and we were told, she was 16 years old, she couldn't believe sitting around a table was such a beautiful experience. She'd never done it. I mean, that's sad.
Initially, they would all five sleep at the back here. So Pearl would sleep behind on the other side, and I think Sarah might. But yeah, they could all five sleep here. Oh, that's how we designed it. So there you can see they're sitting eating in the caravan. So we run the business. So what I would do is I would come up on the weekends. So I would be running the business during the week. And as the boys got a bit bigger, I would then alternate with them. So one of them would come in each week with me. Luke was the naughtiest.
No.
I had to. So he used to come in with me the most. So now he's my right-hand man when it comes to running the business because he knows the most. So, but it's interesting how it works. But he was giving Pearl the hardest time, so he ended up coming more often. But yeah, so we'd run the business. This is us at night time. So we're now in new premises, but so yeah, we had this.
We never rented a house in Somerset West. We stayed in the factory.
So yeah,
This is in the factory.
We had this van, so there we threw. So when the whole family used to come in, because normally it would just be me and Luke sleeping, or maybe three, then we'd just throw a mattress on the floor in the office and we'd sleep there. We didn't even have a shower. So we would hose ourselves middle of winter with a hose pipe I always had the thing is, don't make your city home too comfortable. You know, because we don't want to have heaven on earth in the city. So we kept it pretty remote, but we, to a large extent, didn't have too much choices at that stage because we were renting. So we couldn't just do what we wanted in the building. But yeah, so yeah, that's when the whole family would be together, and that's how we would sit and eat a meal. Yeah, that's us sleep in there. Okay, so yeah, there we were putting in sewage because there was a toilet in the house, but there was no sewage. I don't know how the guys worked it, but someone had put a toilet in, and a pipe outside, but no one had ever bothered to connect a pipe up. So yeah,
So we had to have a septic tank and everything. Yeah.
So we, you know, I grew up fairly handy, and my dad taught me, but I mean, we weren't plumbers and all this. We had to learn all of the stuff as you're going on, you know.
And this was my boys' education. People ask us, how did you educate your children? This was their education. They had to learn how to do electrics. They had to learn how to build, how to do plumbing. That was their education.
So over here we made rooms for the children up top here. Their bedrooms became up there, so we just extended the roof over. And there's Victor, a really nice guy from the Eastern Cape. He was a carpenter. And so Luke was his handlanger for about 2 months at that stage. And so yeah, Luke learned a lot about carpentry, and you know, so they learned on the job.
This was 2014, by the way.
Yeah, working late at night. So the house is now starting to progress. Yeah, so you know, they never, you know, when I grew up, I remember being bored, not knowing what to do with yourselves. And I remember that was a common problem. I feel sorry for my kids. They've never experienced boredom, ever. Not a single day. I'm sure they would love to be bored. And I'm not being facetious. I'm serious. It's just, there was so much to do. They were just so busy. But what was the sin of your sister Sodom? The fullness of bread and the abundance of idleness. That's what caused Sodom. Too much ease of life and idleness. So yeah, there's Sarah Sandin. So Ben, he's finished. We worked him finished. There's Pearl Sandin, wooden doors. Please don't work with wood, get aluminium. Oh, I tell you. Yeah, that's one thing we need to realize. We need to try and do things that last once properly so that we've got more time. So, you know, we need to be as efficient. God's people need to be as efficient as possible. You know?
So this was a blessing. Now, I would go to Summers of Rest because like once a month when I go through, just have a break from the farm, to go and do a big shop or whatever. We had a friend, one of our clients actually, who heard what we're doing, and he had units at the Protea Hotel in Technopark in Stellenbosch. And he said, your family can go there and it will only cost you the fee of cleaning, the cleaning fee, which is crazy. It's like nothing.
Yeah, I think we would stay there, the whole family.
It was such a
We would get 2 rooms which are serviced, and it would be 150 Rand a night for the whole family, for the cleaning fee. So you saw how we were living on the farm, and we lived like that, and you saw how we lived when we came into the factory. And that went on for a number of years, but God takes care, and you know, He looks after those special needs like the women and things like that. And He provided this miraculously.
4 years.
You know, so Pearl would come from the farm, and then we'd have this beautiful white linen, and you know, it's just it was like a revitalizer, you know. And you know, God looks out for you. And so yeah, we don't only work the reason we chose the property is because of the big river that it borders. which is beautiful. So we love water. Yeah. So we do everything together. We've worked together. We played together. We minister together. So yeah, try and do as much together as a family. And so yeah, that was our first attempt at a vegetable garden. So yeah, there we were growing. The boys were getting bigger. There's Pearl and Sarah planting. Yeah, this is them laying some irrigation. This is quite recently.
It's the forest.
Oh yeah, we were planting a forest. You can see we all work together. Okay, so yeah, this is an old little tractor we've got that we were ploughing with. That's the fields. One note I want to tell you that country living is not a call to farm. Don't get the impression that you're going out into the country to become a farmer and to sustain yourself from farming. That's not the call. You may become a farmer to sustain yourself, but I believe farming is one of the hardest professions in the world. Making a business in the city is about 10 times easier than making a successful farm. There's no comparison. Farmers are born, almost, to an extent. And so be very careful not to misinterpret the call to move into the country to become a farmer. If you're a plumber, keep your plumbing, So keep what you've got to make your living. Don't think you're going to go out there and so many people have burnt their fingers trying to do it. There's a saying that goes, how do you make a small fortune? You take a big fortune and you go farming.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's... So then COVID arrived, and I was telling one of the brothers here that we had just moved premises into new premises, and so we had a new lease, deposits, and we had basically tiled out the place and cleaned up. We'd done a lot, so we had no money. All our cash flow was gone, and we had just moved in January. So February, COVID hit us, and we had nothing. And so after COVID, we were like, we don't want to be in this position again. So up until COVID, they were living predominantly on the farm, but after COVID, the rest of the family has come in and helped a lot more on the business. So we focused on the business. But now we're focusing more on the farm again, because we're now in a position where we can. So, you need to make sure you keep your livelihood, and you need to look and protect your income. Don't make hasty decisions and just give up your job and say God's going to provide. God doesn't want those sort of rash decisions. It must be, He wants us to use our logic and our intelligence and counsel and do it wisely. But at the same time, we mustn't let the grass grow under our feet, we got the neighbor. So during COVID, no one knew were we ever going to come out of COVID? When were we going to come out of COVID? And so we got about half a ton of garlic, and that's what we were advised to plant. So during COVID, we had a fantastic time on the farm, and we planted garlic. This is us planting garlic. And it was a real experience. It was a fantastic experience.
We didn't make much money from it, but we were able to give a lot of the garlic away to clients and people who needed it with COVID. So for that reason alone, I say yes, we needed to plant the garlic. But it was a learning curve for us all.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was the garlic. A good farming lesson. We probably broke even, but as Bill said, it was a great learning curve, It's our garlic. Timothy's got a vlog if any of you are interested in seeing some of the activities on the farm. This is watermelon. We're planting water. That's watermelon we harvested.
Nice.
That's the car full of watermelon. The best watermelon you've ever eaten. I don't know if you've ever had watermelon that comes from Uppington or on the Orange River. I don't know if ever of you had that privilege. Well, it tastes just as good as those watermelons. Because the best watermelon I ever ate was on the Orange River. And we got very similar conditions. And yeah, our watermelon was just fantastic. You can see how overloaded the car was. And then we had beautiful building sand, which we can harvest from the river. And that's us. We made bricks to build with. So the boys learned how to make bricks. And a normal brick's MPa, that's the strength of the big brick is measured in MPa. An average brick is about 8 to 9 MPa. So we had a friend who's got a decking system making these concrete decks for double, triple stories. And he measured it for us and it came back 23 MPa.
Wow.
So, these are the kind of things your children get involved in, you get involved with. And, hard work is fun. It's not, you feel good at the end of the day. The fickle things we do in the city don't bring that reward, that sense of self-worth. Suicide is such a issue amongst the young people today. And one of the reasons is because they don't feel they're worth anything. Because they can't do anything. They're not contributing to society. When you're in country living, there's so much to do. Your children know they're useful. They know they're helping. They know they're part of the process. And so we built this tank stand to put the water on to give it a bit more gravity feed. Tim and Benj, they built some nice pillars in the front of the property. YouTube, anybody heard of YouTube? Well, you can learn almost anything in YouTube. So looking on YouTube, buying books on alternative building and all this. So we used form building here. And so they built these pillars. And that's what it looked like. And that's what the entrance to the farm basically looks like now. This is a picture to illustrate. Our biggest challenge probably on the farm is quirk grass. It's almost impossible to get rid of it. And so you can see you can see how small these trees are here, and you can see how big those ones are. Planted exactly the same time, but the ones were choked by quirk, and the others weren't. So when you plant and that, you need to keep all of these sort of things in mind that you can deal with it. There you can see the ones that are circled were the ones that are under with quirk. And the bigger ones in the background, they didn't have any quirk around them. This is our mango trees. So one of the things we learned is you must protect the stems from the sun, from sunburn. So if you're planting plants, especially when they're young, you'll see the farmers put like a white thing around it. Because some of our trees, we didn't do it. We planted some camphors. And our camphors would probably be 3 times the size they are today if we had protected those stems, because the sun burned it really bad.
I have a question. So with what do you protect it with hessium?
Well, that was with hessium bags. You've got to be careful with hessium because it does retain water. But that's actually no, that's not hessium. That's it's shade netting. Sorry, that's shade netting. So hessian would be, it retains the water. You don't want the moisture on the trunk of the tree because it breeds disease and fungi and that sort of thing. The shade netting, that's like a plastic, so it doesn't retain water.
But some people paint it with a lime paint, and the other people put piping.
And you get these, but we've painted with paint as well. That also works. White PVA basically. The cheapest PVA you can get. You don't want to buy the expensive ones because they've got the silicones in and they stretch. Whereas the really cheap PVAs are just basically lime and I don't know, but they don't harm the plants. So once we had a really bad frost. That was the frost there, and I always compare frost to letting your children go out on the wrong date, or have a sleepover with the wrong people, or letting them go to the wrong party. You can raise your children up perfectly good for 15 years, and one night they can be ruined. And that's the same with frost. You can have this plant, and in one night the frost can come and kill. We lost a lot of plants with this one frost. And I always compare it to raising children. So this is our mango tree. So we built these frames and we put these bags that you buy, second-hand bags. They're not sugar bags, they're coal bags and different bags that you can buy. They've been used to transport stuff, but now they get thrown away. And they work perfectly. So you put them over the mangoes like that, and the trees have absolutely thrived. So when they're small, like children, they need to be protected. And once the plant gets bigger, it's out of the frost zone, and it can survive. It's like our teenagers or younger children can survive where a 6-year-old won't survive. So yeah, that's some of our mango trees. We were pruning to graft. So we're going to graft on this as a rootstock. Use that. So we planted those mango trees from pips. So what we would do is in a hole we would plant about 5 pips, let them grow up, and we used the saber, the kidney mango, which is the most common rootstock for mangoes. So I don't know if you know, but most trees are grafted. So what they do is they find out the tree that has the strongest root system. But the tree with the strongest root system doesn't necessarily have the best fruit. And so they take a tree and also different rootstocks work better in different environments. So you get ones that are more drought tolerant, and ones that can handle being wet, whereas the one that may be drought tolerant is not so good in a wet climate. And so they choose the right rootstock, and then you graft whatever mango, whatever variety you want onto that. So yeah, this is a little bit late because we're not always at the farm, so we're between the two places. But yeah, and these grafts have now taken off quite nice. This is the river. So when we arrived, this is basically what the river looked like. And basically this whole section here, this was all land. You can see there goes the irrigation pipe. And over here, where you can't see, there's actually a borehole that's now in the water that was on the land, which, so we learned how to deal with the water and redirecting it. And we've regained quite a bit of the land. And we used bags to do it. Since I was filling the bags up. So we built like terraces out to direct the water away from the land. And then you get the eddy currents, which then your silt settles, and over years you can actually reclaim the land. So so this is that was when we were building it, and now this is when it came down high the river. You can see how much water is flowing there, but it directed all the water away from the banks. So this is, you go to the beach and you build a sand castle and you have fun. We just out in the country, you're doing that sort of thing, just on a bigger scale, So, I mean, this was actually, it was hard work, but it was quite fun playing around with the river. Or maybe you ladies don't do that, but us boys, with our little toys and playing boats and, playing in the streams. Well, it's pleasurable. So, there's the borehole. So that was all land previously, which the flood had taken away. This river can come down pretty big. So we planted some vineyard vines.
300 vines.
Got beautiful table grapes. There's the poles. It's digging the anchor poles. You need to make proper anchor poles. We had to concrete them in because once you string your wires, one wire you might put on about 80 kilograms of pressure on one wire, and now you have 10 of them. That's 800 kilograms, and that all builds up, and before you know it, your pole falls over. We went and we looked at all the table grape vineyards in our area or on the way to the farm, and we chose the ones we thought we looked best, and then we made friends with the guy. And people are more than willing to give you information. He helped us, so we followed his protocol. He said, do this, we did that. And it's proved to be very successful.
And that's what I did. When we moved there, we made friends with a mango farmer. I wanted the boys to glean that knowledge, that they could learn, and they taught us so much. A mango farmer, this guy with the grapes. Make friends with farmers in the area that you can learn from them. And they want to help you, they're helpful.
And practice humility. Sometimes we as Adventists are a little bit stuck up. We've got the truth, we know everything. What are you going to teach us? Come to us, we'll teach you. Do we have that attitude sometimes? We have to be, and especially when it comes to country living. And I know a lot of people are like, the farmers are doing everything wrong. Well, until you're a farmer, don't start criticizing the farmers.
They work very hard.
So have a spirit of humility when you go into the country. Ask. Don't go out there because you read one book on organic gardening. You think you're going to teach the guy who grew up on a farm, So, this is the vineyard. There you can see the grapes. We get so much grapes. Absolutely. This is a baobab. So we put the slide in. Remember, we're telling you this not to show off, but to inspire you, to show you what can be done. And a lot of people are under the impression that there's no time. And when we moved out, I remember driving up in the first few months with someone in the car who was helping us. In fact, it was the guy who was helping us with the electricity. We were driving up out of Clanwilliam and a SMS came through because WhatsApp wasn't around in those days. And SMS came through and he's reading it there and he's sitting on the seat next to me and he says, I told you, Paul, Sunday laws are coming out. Someone had sent him a message, and yes, by November there will be Sunday laws, and by the end of the year God would have come. And we told you we were quite involved with, I think, Eden Life. Well, we weren't involved with them, but we'd helped them. And quite a number of those people came to us and told us, you're crazy, what are you doing? What are you wasting time moving into the country? Why are you doing this? There's no time for this. God is coming. God is coming. We must put all our money into God's work. There's no time to do country living. Well, Eden Life's fallen away. Many of those people are nowhere to be found anymore. And while they were telling us, Timothy, when we went to the Kruger National Park, we got this baobab, and he took one of these seeds and he planted it. And he planted a baobab, and that's how it's growing. And that's our rock garden. That's how big the baobab is today.
4.1 meters high.
So, and just out of interest sake, there's a lady who has a doctorate in baobabs up in, what's the place up there? Limpopo. And I phoned her up the one day to get advice about baobabs and things like that. And then she started inquiring where I was, and she couldn't believe we had baobabs growing on our farm. And she came and visited us just to see the baobabs. The first baobab she's seen growing in the Karoo. There's the girth. You can't even if you put your arms around there, you won't touch your arms. And remember, before that tree was planted, we were told the Lord is coming. And so the message I want to send out to you, don't be misled by those people. We are not to say God is coming in this year. We're not to say God is not coming in this year. Ellen White is very explicit about that. But the fact is, we must prepare, and you can see what our property looks like now. We'll get to that.
Yeah, I'll show you.
So, this is some before. There was nothing there before. This is a garden we planted. And, talking about seeds, he has a kokerboom. I don't know how many of you love kokerbooms, but I always loved kokerboom. This, I remember we were driving through the Karoo somewhere, and we stopped in a town, and in front of the police station was a kokerboom, and it had seeds on it. And I still remember my wife was saying, you can't steal the seeds in front of the police station. And so Sarah and I went and we picked off the seeds in front of the police station. And that's one of the trees from that seed. And there's another one. So don't let people tell you that there's no time to prepare.
So this is the farm before, nothing.
Okay, so this is what it looked like basically when we arrived here. In fact, we've done quite a bit of cleanup already, because you can already see there's our plumbing pipes sticking out. So we had already cleaned up. I mean, this place looked way worse than what this picture, okay? So yeah, you can have a look. I remember planting these these 3 ficuses. Oh, we battled so much financially. We couldn't buy anything just normal. They weren't special. They were normally, and I think they were like a quarter the price. And I was so proud of these little trees. And I remember planting them. It was like a very special day. But yeah, so that's what it looked. This is a little bit later. That's what it looks like now. So that's what the driveway looked like. A good gardening tip. These beef woods were planted in the bag. So when you buy a plant in a nursery, it's got that black thing around it.
Take it off.
Take it off before you put it in the ground. I don't know if you knew that. Well, these guys didn't, because these trees were planted in the bags.
And before you come to our gate, there was 1 hectare of apricots. Those apricots were also planted in their bags.
Yeah, they just shoved it in the ground with the bags. So yeah, that's what the entrance looks like today. These are marula trees. Also, no one's ever heard of marula trees down this far. So yeah, they grow like weeds. It's the fastest growing tree on our farm, a marula tree.
Superfood, yeah.
Well, yeah, I think it's actually growing faster than the what's the other one? The sausage tree. Sausage trees also. But these things grow like weeds on our farm. And we make marula jam. I think we'll show you some pictures. But they're beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, that's Luke. Okay. But this is just the before and after. So you can see what the house looks like from this perspective. And now that's what it looks like today, from the same angle. Those are mango trees and other trees in the. To the right here, remember those little ficus trees, those little ball trees that I was so proud of?
Yeah.
That's them over there.
Sure.
Desolate.
So, yeah, that's before. Now that's after. That's what it's looking like.
Yes.
So, there's potential. You can do things with nothing. It's the driveway. It's the entrance that the boys built. It's our rock garden, our lawn,
Beautiful.
garden. Yeah, that's a picture from the top. That's the river that runs in front of our property. Our place is, that's Ella Ridge. We live our house is over here.
I believe that when you're obedient and you do, and God really blesses. So I've seen it. When you plant that little tree, or you plant a garden, or you plant a crop, God blesses it. He really, really does.
Yeah, this is beekeeping. Luke's our beekeeper. That's Honey. That was my father. He introduced Luke to beekeeping, helped him to start learning. That's our vegetable garden. Yeah, some of our produce, broccoli, sweet potato, squash. The boys always tell everyone the squash was so nice out of the garden that you could eat it raw. So they would actually pick it off and eat it in the garden.
It's fresh and sweet.
Tim always likes to tell that story. There's Tim and Benj packing the bags. Remember, and this is another thing, remember how often am I at the farm? On the weekend. So Sabbath, I don't do work. Sunday is only one day. So Pearl and the children did a lot of the work that you see there. That's what they were doing. They did a lot of that work. It's a sunflower tree. I mean, I must say, we're blessed with incredible ground. If you add water, it's very, very fertile. Carrots. Pearl, you wanted to say something? No. You see, that's how happy children are when they're growing up in the country.
Well, in fact, my daughter doesn't like coming to the city. She hates coming to the city. She just wants to be on the farm. You can speak with Sarah. She'll tell you herself.
Yeah, to get Sarah to the mall is about as difficult as getting me to the mall. I mean, how many little girls don't want to go to the mall today? I mean, she hates it. She absolutely hates it.
And my boys.
Bananas, grenadillas, olives, citrus, okra. You should know okra. Oh, we love okra. It's a real favorite. Tomatoes, grapefruit. If you're planting, you must plant grapefruit. Fantastic crop. Man, these things bear and they don't get stung. They get stung, but the skin's too thick. So yeah, that's marula jam from the marula trees.
That Sarah makes.
Yeah, Sarah makes it. She makes us do the work though. It's quite a lot of work. Mulberry, and if you are planting, every tree must have a mulberry tree. Every house must have a mulberry. And if I was you, I'd plant 2 of them. It's the first thing that fruits coming out of winter, and they are super, super antioxidants, very healthy, and they don't take any attention. It's ridiculous. They just grow and they bear. I mean, they're amazing trees. So we've planted, in fact, Josh has planted a whole little, probably about 30 of them, but we've probably got about 5, 6 all over the property. For me, there's nothing nicer than to walk through a property, and as you're walking, you can eat something. I mean, it's like, that's the ultimate for me. Yeah.
Our family loves trees, not just fruit trees, all trees. Yeah.
Yeah, Pearl, you were making some.
That's guava for guava roll. I was making
Guava
guava roll.
roll. Broccoli. That's our millies and maize. We are busy starting a challenge for people who want to join us in the challenge for next year, June. We want to go 1 month, nothing can be bought from the shops. And so one of the things I believe, we need to look at, there's certain staples that we should all have, and I think maize is definitely one of the things we need to learn to grow, because it preserves so easily and it actually bears very well. Maize is amazing. So yeah, we've got a Country Living WhatsApp group. If you want to join it,
Please take the number
you
down.
can take the number, send us a message, or you can give your number to anyone in the family, and we'll put you on the group. As I say, we're developing a community in that regard. And yeah, that's basically it. And then I think what we'll do is open for question and answers. And
Just before
yeah,
you finish, as Paul says, we don't give our testimony to show off what we've done and what have you. We share to help, to say what mistakes we've made, that other people, when you go out, you don't do those mistakes, that you can just, get ahead.
so yeah, are there any questions?
One question from my side. Why did you choose this location and if there's also farming area on the other side, like garden route, was there anything that guided you to choose this location?
Well, at the time it was financially.
Okay.
We had looked and we had looked and we had looked, and we couldn't afford anything up that side of the country. So we never made a cognitive decision to go in this area. As a child, the Cedarburg is just on the backside. So the Cedarburg, you have the Olifants River, I don't know if you know, and then, so the Olifants runs in the front of the Cedarburg, behind the Cedarburg runs the Doorn River, and we're on the Doorn. So as a child, we had spent quite a lot of time in the Cedarburg, and my dad had taken us canoeing on the Doorn River. So I did know that area a little bit, I always loved that area. And then they found the farm. But you can see all the buildings that we got on that farm. There was actually quite a lot of infrastructure, very dilapidated, but you know what? A roof and 4 walls is very valuable when you got nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you'll be amazed how valuable that 4 walls and a roof is. And we couldn't, like I say, we couldn't even buy a townhouse for that price. We couldn't even buy a hectare for that price elsewhere.
So would weather and precipitation be a factor in you moving? Like if you were to move Mohammeday side, more rainy
No.
weather there, and
Well, we battle with the heat a bit, I'll be honest. We
Okay.
battle with the heat. I mean, it gets exceptionally hot. But why God took us there, and we definitely believe God led us there for a purpose. It is definitely one of the safest places in South Africa.
Crime is
It's incredibly safe. And you know, safety is not something you can put value to
yes,
too easy. We hear stories of other people. I mean, we don't really worry to lock doors, or, I mean, we've got wires lying around, they don't get stolen, you know, electrical cables don't get stolen, you know, that kind of thing. You leave it on any other farm, it's just gone like this. So it's remote, but growing wise, if you just add water, man, the stuff thrives.
And we have a longer growing period as well.
We have a long growing period. But you know, why exactly we ended up there, God will probably reveal to us in time.
But he has a little bit because, you know, we've been reading and I feel connected like that. Look, it's still a struggle. Sometimes I feel I must get on a second farm up the garden route because it would be nice to have the greenage. Sometimes it can be quite bare. But you know what? The Israelites went to the desert for what? 40 years. God's people went to the desert. There's something about the desert that does something for your character. It's character building. When I moved there, I got to hear God's voice. You hear God's voice. Would I hear that if I was up on the garden route? There'd be more friends involved. I'd probably be out.
yeah.
There's something about it.
Yeah, look, I mean, I was involved with quite a lot of sport. I mean, I love surfing, windsurf. I grew up in the ocean. And I mean, I would love to be on the ocean. But would it be spiritually good for me? You know, what would I be doing with my free time? You know, and so, you know, you've got to sometimes go where God sends you to go. Yeah, we have, look, it is paradise in winter. Let me tell you what it is. That place is like paradise. Like now, these next few months, it's the best place to be. It's just temperature-wise. And so you've got to endure, but you learn to work around things, you know. And, you know, now with a beautiful garden, and that makes a big difference. You know, it becomes far more. But everything grows there, and the best produce you've ever tasted. Because the soil is not leached. You know, your areas with high precipitation, with a lot of rainfall, the soils are leached.
Okay.
And that's why in the Karoo, if you can get good water, you've got a gold mine as for farming. The stuff just grows. I mean, and you've got a lot of advantages as far as pests go, etc., etc.
But also the minerals in the soil. People ask us, you know, what do we put in our soil?
Yeah.
Actually, we put very little because the flowers, the colours are so...
Yeah, even the flowers' colours are better than what you would find locally
and the fruit is
because of
sweeter.
the nutritional and the minerals
Yeah.
in the soil.
Tell me, In summer, do you have enough water for irrigation?
Yeah, we got plenty water.
Okay.
Yeah,
From
we
the
got-
river.
Yeah, from the river,
We
and we got
only-
borehole. But we haven't even really needed to go to borehole. Yeah.
We use the river for everything.
James, yeah?
So how many years did it take you to plant all of these
10 years.
plants?
It's about 10 to 12 years.
Wow. It's a little.
How old are you, James?
7.
Let me tell you what, time goes quickly,
But
yeah?
actually,
I
James,
mean,
if I can just add to that, you're asking how many years. So let me tell you, we moved there 2010. In 2014, we moved into the house. So from 2014, we started really with the gardening and stuff. 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014. So yeah, it's about 8 to 10 years.
Wow.
yeah.
I was going to ask, I saw ducks. Why do you have ducks over there?
Geese.
Geese.
Oh, geese. What?
They're
Yeah,
our
they're the
pets.
greatest
We
pets.
love them.
Oh.
My daughter's a problem. If something moves, she'll tame it. Yeah, I mean, she even tried to convince me that I must let her keep a crab. No, she just loves animals. Look, we love our geese. They're the cutest things. Let me tell you what, those things, yeah, no, they're very cute.
No snakes.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, plenty snakes,
Yes.
puff adders, and
Cobras,
cobras.
king cobras.
Cape Cobra. But you know, the funny thing is, we've got the business in Strand. Now, Strand is pretty much like where you live here, right?
Yes.
It's urban and it's developed and everything. Well, a couple of weeks ago, a snake handler died from a Cape Cobra bite that he received in the Strand.
Nico
So, don't think you're safe here and there's no snakes out there. He has a guy, and he actually, I don't know, it was in the news if any of you followed it, but yeah, he passed away just a month or two ago.
But his name was Nico Pence. You
Nico
can go and
Pence,
read-
yeah.
you can go and look.
So yeah, we've got lots of snakes.
And scorpions.
We don't tolerate any dangerous animals in our living area. So we don't like protect the snake kind of thing. You protect the human because that's biblical. Human life above animal life.
Yeah, of course.
Because that has been reversed today.
Yes.
Today, animal life is considered more valuable than human life. And we need to make sure we get that correct, because that is our commission. Our commission is to put mankind before animals. Yeah, so in fact, last weekend we were experimenting a little bit, playing around with the puff adder.
Wow.
So we wanted to see if the puff adder could bite through a gum boot. So we stuffed the gum boot and we put him in an enclosure, and because Joshua a week before was climbing into the tractor, and the guy who's working on the farm with us says a puff adder struck and hit his boot. So we were quite interested to see whether a puff adder could actually get through the gum boot. And I don't know what was wrong with, I don't know if Sarah had tamed this puff adder, but for some reason this puff adder was so tolerant. We kicked him and with the boot and we did everything, and he was like, but he did strike a few times, and the few times he did strike, he never went through the gum boot. So yeah, no, we've had lots of experience with snakes. But that's reality. If you go walk, we went to Kirstenbosch, and we came across a worm slime. A beautiful, and we've got beautiful footage. We filmed it. And this worm slime was a huge worm slime. And we were stopping all the tourists, and everyone was sitting there looking at this worm slime. It must have been like, what, a meter?
Quite beautiful.
1.2, 1.3 meter worm slime in Kirstenbosch. And funny enough, you asked about snakes. When were we at Kirstenbosch now?
We went
This
there
year.
with our family December,
Were you?
November last year.
Karen and Shannon, you were with us as well. So you know the enclosure,
The
the
atrium.
glass enclosure,
The atrium.
and they've got their southernmost baobab.
Yeah.
And we've got a race on our baobab's going to be bigger than theirs. Not yet, but in a few years I think we're gonna have a bigger baobab than Kirstenbosch. But anyway, in that glass enclosure, we were walking. Guess what slithered right in front of us? Cape Cobra.
a cobra. And my little nephew,
And so we still got them to, after long persuasion, only in Africa, after long persuasion, they eventually closed the enclosure. Would you believe that?
Sure.
Only in Africa were they willing to allow people to go and visit the enclosure with a Cape Cobra running around. I had to go to management to get them to close the place. That was crazy. But anyway, so yeah, on your back garden, you've got Kirstenbosch, you've got Cape Cobras, you've got